These are the two note cards I'll be using to present my speech today. I have a dream. We have all heard those famous words before. They were said by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during his speech. Many events have led up to the civil rights movement. In the next 5 minutes, I am going to share with you all the inspiring things Mr. King has done throughout his life. Hopefully by the end, you'll have a better understanding of what Mr. King has done in order to have equal rights for himself and African Americans. It all started when Mr. King was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1929. King attended several colleges, earning a degree in sociology and a doctoral in Semitic theology. While attending college, he actually had his letter to the editor published. This letter was called Black People Are Entitled to Basic Rights. King had become a pastor at the Ebenezer Church in 1940. In 1946, the U.S. Supreme Court banned segregation on interstate bus travel. King married Loretta Scott and soon after had their first child. In 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat and moved to the back of the bus to make room for a white passenger. According to the U.S. history context, this is what sparked the civil rights movement of the 20th century. Black people began boycotting buses, this lasted for 381 days. This was known as the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Since King was the leader of the civil rights movement, he was targeted the most for it. In 1956, King's home was bombed not only once, but twice. Luckily, the first bomb, nobody was hurt, and the second one was found before it had gone off. In 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled racial segregation unconstitutional, and for the first time, black passengers could take any seat on the bus if they wanted. In 1957, the Little Rock 9 incident happened. 9 young black students were not allowed to enter the racially segregated schools despite the laws. With this many things happening, Mr. King had decided to write a book. He called it The Stride Towards Freedom, a Montgomery Story. While picketing, King was arrested for breaking Georgia's trespassing laws. King became a president of the Congress of Racial Equality Group. Freedom Riders were common in this time period. Freedom Riders were a group of people that traveled and tested the laws. This group rode in on buses to Anniston, Georgia, where the bus was lit on fire and picketers were beaten to death. In 1963, King gave his I Had a Dream speech. He did this speech on the Lincoln Memorial steps, with over 250,000 people supporting him. Another violent attack was on the 16th Street Church, where 4 little girls were killed in a bomb. In 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. Following that, in 1964, King won a Nobel Prize in Oslo, Norway. The Selma March was a very famous march that involved 300,000 marchers. During this march, a white woman was transporting marchers to the event and was killed. President Lyndon passed a Voting Act of 1965 in an attempt to overcome the illegal rules against African Americans voting. There were also riots in California. They were so bad that the National Guard had to come in and arrest people. The result was ending in 35 deaths. Mr. King was stoned in an angry crowd for presenting the idea of an open house in Chicago. In 1968, King gave his I've Been to the Mountaintop speech at the Mormon Temple. Sadly, in 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. This happened while he was standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel with a gunshot. The following day, services were held at the Spelman College in Atlanta. After marching him by horseback alongside of 300,000 marchers, they had these services held. In 1986, Congress deemed Monday, January 18th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, in remembrance of all he had contributed to our nation. I hope by now you all have a better understanding of the contributions and the things that Mr. King has gone through in order to have equal rights for everybody. Thank you for watching.